Hi guys, so James O'Brien brought up a very valid point this morning when he discussed the cost of living crisis and Brexit. Now, while many countries around the world are struggling with rising energy costs, which have fed into higher prices for food and non-food items, Britain instead is in a unique position where it has added another yoke around its neck, and this impediment is self-inflicted. What's deeply frustrating is how Labour MPs, individual ones, do not attack Brexit more. James laid it out perfectly in this monologue.
Statement. The B word can't really be mentioned. I don't know why the Labour Party don't mention it more, but any statistical analysis of our trading situation, the amount of taxes we've lost on the drop in trade, the United Kingdom's failure even to be part of the global bounce back post-coronavirus, reports today from a select committee, which of course consists of politicians from all parties, showing that labour shortages in the food and farming sectors are actually threatening our food security at a time when food security has never been more important. We've got a form of national myopia on this. You can listen to me every day and I'll point out the realities of Brexit, but you won't hear it in Parliament. You'll hear it in the occasional select committee, but there's problems there because that means we're even worse off than we would have been if we were only dealing with global price increases and situations in Ukraine. And
I just want to interrupt him for a second because I think it's important to talk about why the Labour Party is not mentioning this. Now, there's a difference between Labour Party policy on this, or the approach the Labour Party has, and individual MPs, because individual MPs can criticise Brexit. I think the approach from the Labour Party, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but I think the approach is we don't want to piss off the Red Wall. We believe that the Red Wall voted for Brexit. We believe that the Red Wall voted for Boris Johnson because of Brexit. And we don't want to mention Brexit because it may turn these people off the Labour Party. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I have my doubts, but I understand why they're doing that. But that doesn't mean that individual MPs who are not in the Red Wall can criticise Brexit. And they have to do that. They have to be honest with people. They have to say, look, the reason you're suffering at the moment is because of what Boris Johnson has done to this country, what the Tories have done to this country, what Nigel Farage has done to this country. That's what the Labour Party MPs need to be doing. Their party supporters, maybe not the party itself, it doesn't have to be an official line, but individual MPs and supporters need to be pushing this. Because that's what Boris Johnson won on. That was his, in a sense, single manifesto pledge to get Brexit done. He should be loaded with all of this. This should be the yoke hanging around Boris Johnson's neck. The fact that it's more difficult to deal with this crisis because of Brexit, because of what Boris Johnson delivered back in 2019 and 2020 and 2021.
And geopolitics. It's as if we've entered a really difficult race and have deliberately tied our ankles together. It's incredible to reflect upon, and yet still the political environment is such, newspaper-led, Boris Johnson inflamed, that we don't talk about it. So however bad things are, the boat upon which Boris Johnson sailed into Downing Street is going to make it worse. Sajid Javid lying today to Nick Ferrari about the £350 million for the NHS that was supposed to be a result of Brexit. I mean, to be fair, the question was phrased in a way that made it sound as if the money had come from Brexit, but it hadn't, of course. Theresa May found more money from the NHS, but it didn't come from savings accrued as a consequence of leaving the European Union, because there aren't any. So that's a blatant lie, and it's still halfway around the world, of course, before the truth has got its trousers on.
Now, there's also the problem of why Brexit is also having an impact on the cost of living. And it's quite clear that one of the reasons is because there's a lack of workers. There are not enough workers in the economy to help businesses to operate. Like last year, there was a sudden decline in overseas workers. 500,000 job vacancies are currently in the farming and food sector. Now, the farming and food sector currently have a workforce of about 4 million. So 500,000 vacancies are available, are impacting that sector. A quarter of the UK, it seems, the UK daffodil crop has been left unpicked. Fruit is being left to rot in the fields. There's also a lack of workers in the meat sector, for example, butchers and abattoir workers. That has resulted in 35,000 pigs being sent to incinerators during a cost of living crisis. People are queuing up at food banks because they can't afford food, and 35,000 pigs have been sent to incinerators. Why? Because there aren't enough workers available. Why? Because of the ending of freedom of movement. And the response from government is too little, too late. Select committees, and I've covered this during the last number of months, how select committees like the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Select Committee have criticised the government's approach. And the government's approach has been to, well, we'll tinker around the edges, we'll expand visas, we'll extend the visas in some cases. But that's not enough. You've created a hostile environment. You created a hostile environment to get the Brexit vote over the line. And these are the consequences of that. You can't turn around now and say, well, it's all because of Ukraine, or it's all because of the pandemic, or all because of that. Because, yes, it's having a massive impact. But as we've seen before, European countries have exited and their economies are starting to recover after the pandemic, while the UK economy is not. So, of course, if there are fewer workers available, companies have to pay those existing workers more. This is going to drive up prices. And, of course, this is going to drive the cost of living crisis even more acute. And the response from government is, don't talk about Brexit. Like, how do you fix a problem if you ignore one of the core causes of that problem? You know, the government are saying, we're not going to don't talk about Brexit because we need it. But they continue to say, we're going to fix this crisis. But they can't fix it unless they come clean with the public and say, yes, Brexit is part of the problem. But then how do you fix Brexit? The Labour Party seem to believe that they can fix Brexit. But you can't, because it has destroyed trade. It has created barriers. You can't undo those barriers unless you rejoin the single market and the customs union, unless you rejoin the European Union. But that doesn't seem to be on the cards with the main parties at the moment. The Labour Party aren't talking about rejoining the European Union, not even the single market and the customs union. And the Conservatives, we don't even need to go there. So the cost of living crisis is deeply impacted by Brexit, but nobody wants to talk about that. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.